Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a closer look at something probably familiar to many of you, Gatorade. We've got quite a stack of sources here to really dig into this iconic drink, understand its story beyond just the sidelines.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to give you the full picture. We'll look at how it started, what's actually in the different kinds they sell now,
Right.
how it stacks up against, say, your morning coffee, whether it's actually useful if you're, not a pro athlete,
Yeah.
and even, interestingly, using it as an alcohol mixer. So by the end, you should have a much clearer idea of where Gatorade fits, or maybe doesn't fit, in today's world.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Gatorade. It all goes back to what, 1965?
Right.
University of Florida, super hot, super humid,
Mm-hmm.
and they were worried about the football team, the Gators. Something was up, more than just thirst.
Yeah, and it's pretty startling when you hear the details. I mean, players losing up to 8 liters of sweat. 8 liters. And the really alarming part, they weren't urinating. That's a huge red flag for severe dehydration.
Wow. Okay, so the goal was, well, simple, but kind of revolutionary for the time, right? Make a drink that replaces fluids and electrolytes and sugars, not just water.
Exactly. Back then, water was the standard, but clearly it wasn't cutting it for these guys under that intense Florida heat and exertion.
So Dr. Robert Cade and his team, they came up with this formula. Water, sodium, sugar, potassium, phosphate.
And lemon juice. Yeah, each ingredient had a specific purpose, targeting what those athletes were sweating out.
But the story about the first batch, that's something else. Apparently, it tasted so awful that Dr. Cade himself threw up.
Chuckles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the legend. Really highlights the practical side of science, doesn't it? It took his wife, Mrs. Cade, suggesting more lemon juice to actually make it palatable.
Thank goodness for Mrs. Cade then.
Absolutely. They also had to tweak it later, remove cyclamet because the FDA banned it, swapped in fructose,
Yeah.
practical adjustments.
And then came the 1967 Orange Bowl. The Gators won. And suddenly, other teams started paying attention.
That was the turning point, really. It showed potential beyond just their own team, hinted at something bigger.
And bigger it became. Stokely Van Camp got involved in 67. They bought the rights for, $30,000 and 5 cents a gallon?
Yeah, seems like an absolute steal looking back. But it shows, that early glimpse of commercializing sports science. Then Quaker Oats bought them in '83.
Like Quaker Oats. That's when it really exploded, right? More flavors.
More flavors, and the huge deal becoming the official NFL drink in 1985 that put it everywhere.
That NFL connection was massive.
Yeah.
And then PepsiCo bought them in 2001, took it global.
Mm-hmm. And even now, with competitors like Powerade, Prime, BioSteel, Gatorade still holds, over 60% of the market? That's some serious staying power.
It really is. It speaks to the brand, the legacy, and maybe that original formula hitting a real need.
And the culture around it. You can't ignore the Gatorade shower. Started with the Giants in the mid-'80s.
Ah, the Gatorade shower.
And just became this iconic symbol of winning. Kind of funny getting drenched in sticky liquid as a celebration, but it worked.
It really did. Okay, so that's the history. But what are we actually drinking? Let's break down the ingredients across the different U.S. products.
Good idea, because it's not just one thing anymore, is it? Let's start with the classic, the OG Gatorade Thirst Quencher, fruit punch, lemon lime, orange, those ones.
Right. The base seems pretty consistent across those, yeah. Water, sugar, dextrose, citric acid, salt, sodium chloride.
Sodium citrate, monopotassium phosphate. Yep. So water for the hydration, obviously. Sugar and dextrose for quick energy. Citric acid for tartness, maybe a bit of preservation.
And the salts for electrolytes, sodium and potassium.
Exactly. Replacing what's lost in sweat. Pretty close to Dr. Cade's original idea, just refined.
But the flavors, that's where they differ. Looking at this table we have, fruit punch uses modified food starch, red 40, caramel color.
Yeah, artificial colors there. And lemon lime, gum Arabic, and yellow 5.
Another artificial color.
Yeah.
And orange, gum Arabic, something called sucrose acetate isobutyrate, and yellow 6.
So yeah, all 3 of those classic flavors rely on artificial colors. Something to note if you're tracking that sort of thing.
Definitely. Okay, so how does that compare to Gatorade Zero, which is huge now?
Right. Zero's whole pitch is electrolytes without the sugar, without the calories, for people who want the hydration support but not the sugar load.
Makes sense. And the ingredients, similar base.
A lot of overlap on the electrolyte side. You still see water, citric acid, sodium citrate, salt, monopotassium phosphate, That core hydration blend is there.
But the big swap is the sweeteners, right?
Yeah.
No sugar, no dextrose. Instead, it's sucralose and ACE-K.
Exactly. Sucralose and acylfame potassium, those are the artificial sweeteners they use instead.
And our comparison table, Table 2, really shows that difference for lemon lime. Same electrolytes, basically, but calories plummet, sugar goes to 0.
But interestingly, they often keep the same artificial colors, like the yellow 5 in both lemon lime versions. So visually, it's still familiar.
Trying to keep that brand look consistent, maybe, but the portfolio goes way beyond just these two now, doesn't it? Gatorlyte, for instance.
Gatorlyte, yeah. That one's marketed for rapid rehydration. It actually packs in 5 electrolytes: sodium, potassium, magnesium, chloride, and calcium. So a broader spectrum.
In less sugar than the original.
Yep, lower sugar, around 10 grams. And a key point they highlight: no artificial sweeteners or flavors. You see that in the flavors, too. Watermelon, orange, cherry lime. Trying to sound more natural.
So that's targeting maybe more intense situations or people actively avoiding artificial stuff.
Seems like it. Intense exercise, maybe illness recovery, extreme heat. But for that consumer who's reading labels for artificial ingredients.
Okay. Then there's Gatorade Fit. That sounds even more like a wellness play.
Definitely. Natural wellness is the angle. The electrolytes here come from watermelon juice and sea salt. Plus, they add vitamins A and C, 100% daily value. And again, the big claims: no artificial flavors or sweeteners, no added sugar, so it's low-cal. Flavors like blackberry raspberry, citrus berry, very much aimed at that health-conscious, lighter activity crowd.
Yeah, you can really see them responding to market trends there, the demand for more natural options.
Totally. And then a completely different direction, fast twitch.
Right, the energy drink version. Caffeine, how much are we talking?
A hefty amount, 200 milligrams per serving. So yeah, firmly in the energy drink category. It still has electrolytes, B vitamins.
And the ready-to-drink was initially no sugar, no carbonation.
Right. The powder version is interesting too. Very low sugar, less than 2 grams. And again, no artificial flavors or colors from artificial sources, which is specific wording. And the powder adds things like L-citrulline, betaine, beta-alanine stuff you often see in pre-workouts. Plus, it's NSF-certified sport, important for competitive athletes.
So that's really targeting pre-activity energy and focus, not just hydration. A big departure.
Huge departure. And that's not even all of it. You've got powders and tablets for convenience, the endurance formula with more electrolytes, the GX system with the customizable pods.
Oh yeah, the pods.
And Propel Fitness Water, which is their 0-calorie vitamin and electrolyte water. They've really branched out to cover almost every hydration and energy niche.
It's kind of mind-boggling, the range.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears. Morning routines. Coffee is king for many people. How does Gatorade Thirst Quencher stack up as a first thing in the morning drink?
Yeah, that's a common question. What kind of energy are you really getting? With coffee, it's caffeine, right?
Yeah.
We need to understand how that works. There's a chemical, adenosine, that builds up in your brain while you're awake, makes you feel tired.
Right.
Caffeine basically blocks the receptors for adenosine. That's what makes you feel alert, gives you that little dopamine kick, usually hits its peak in your blood within about half an hour.
Okay. But our body has its own wake-up system too, doesn't it? That cortisol thing.
Exactly. The cortisol awakening response, or CRR. Your body naturally releases cortisol, the stress hormone, usually peaking around 8 or 9 a.m. for most people, to help you wake up and feel alert.
So some experts, like Huberman, suggest not drinking coffee right away, waiting like 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's the recommendation from folks like Huberman and Stephen Miller. Delaying caffeine for 90 to 120 minutes after waking.
Why? What's the benefit of waiting?
Well, there are a few ideas behind it. One, let your natural cortisol response do its thing without caffeine interfering. This might make the caffeine work better later when your cortisol naturally dips.
Okay.
2, waiting lets a bit more adenosine build up, so when the caffeine comes in, it has more to block, potentially giving you a stronger effect.
Ah, interesting.
And 3, some think it might help reduce caffeine tolerance or dependence over time. You're not immediately hitting that button the second you wake up.
So the listener asked if adenosine receptors are active right when you wake up.
Oh yeah, they're active. They're always there. But the key is the level of adenosine itself is lowest right after sleep. You haven't built much up yet.
So caffeine will work, but maybe not as well.
Exactly. It'll block what little adenosine is there. But it might be, let's say, suboptimal. You might blunt your natural cortisol surge, build tolerance faster, and maybe not get as smooth or sustained an effect as waiting a bit.
Gotcha. So not exactly pointless, but maybe not the best timing.
Probably a fair way to put it.
Okay, now compare that to Gatorade Thirst Quencher in the morning. What's its energy source?
Purely caloric energy from simple sugars. Sucrose and dextrose dissolved in water. That 20-ounce bottle has around 36 grams of sugar, about 140 calories.
So a big sugar hit spikes your blood sugar, which I guess could be good if your energy stores are low, like after fasting overnight or if you're about to exercise intensely.
Potentially, yes. If you need rapid glucose, it provides it. And the electrolytes could help if you somehow got really dehydrated overnight, but that's less common for most people.
But for someone just waking up, heading to a disc job, probably not ideal.
Probably not. That big sugar load isn't really needed. It can lead to that spike and crash effect later. You're just adding calories and sugar without a clear purpose activity-wise.
So head to head, Gatorade Thirst Quencher versus coffee for starting the day.
Okay, hydration first. Both add fluids. Coffee is hydrating overall, despite the mild diuretic thing. Gatorade's sodium might help retain fluid if you were dehydrated, but plain water or the water in coffee is usually fine for typical morning needs.
And the energy part.
That's the crucial difference. Gatorade increase immediate caloric energy, sugar energy, potential crash later. Coffee is stimulant alertness from caffeine, minimal calories, more sustained if you time it right, no sugar crash.
So is Gatorade better energy and hydration than coffee in the morning?
It totally depends on your morning. For just hydration, water or coffee is fine. Gatorade's electrolytes are only needed if you've had significant loss, unlikely for most overnight. For energy, depends what kind you need. Fuel for hard physical work? Maybe Gatorade, mental alertness for the day. Timed coffee is likely better. That sugar load in Gatorade is a real downside for focus compared to black coffee. And those electrolytes, usually just extra stuff your body doesn't need first thing.
Even Gatorade Zero.
Zero avoids the sugar, true. But you're still getting electrolytes that are probably unnecessary in the morning, plus the artificial sweeteners, which is its own conversation.
Right. Okay, let's broaden the scope. Who else drinks Gatorade? It's everywhere now, not just on football fields. Is it actually relevant for the average person?
That's a key question, isn't it? The marketing is so pervasive, but the science is pretty clear. For most people, doing low to moderate intensity activity, especially for less than an hour,
Water is enough.
water is consistently recommended. Sports drinks like Gatorade were designed for extended, intense exercise with significant sweat loss. That's where they shine.
Same for kids, right?
Generally, yes. A balanced diet usually covers their electrolyte needs. For the average person, kid or adult, Gatorade Thirst Quencher often means extra sugar and calories they don't need, and even Gatorade Zero provides electrolytes they likely don't need either.
So Gatorade versus plain water for the average Joe.
Water, essential, 0 calories, cheap. Gatorade Thirst Quencher, fluids, yes, but also sugar, calories, and electrolytes benefits mostly kick in during intense, long exercise. Gatorade Zero, fluids, electrolytes, no sugar calories, but artificial sweeteners. For routine hydration for the average person, water wins. The extras in Gatorade address demands most people just don't have in daily life.
Okay, what about compared to other drinks like sodas or juice? We got table 3 here.
Looking at the numbers, Gatorade Thirst Quencher generally has less sugar and fewer calories than a typical cola or even 100% orange juice, but
Still a sugar-sweetened beverage.
absolutely. Still adds significant sugar. It does have more electrolytes than soda or juice. Gatorade Zero is more like a diet soda, very low-cal, no sugar, but with electrolytes added.
And colas are just high sugar, low electrolytes. Juice has natural sugar, but also vitamins like C, potassium.
Right. So for the non-athlete, water is the healthiest default. Sugary drinks, including soda, many juices, and Gatorade Thirst Quencher when you don't need it are linked to weight gain, diabetes risk, heart issues, dental problems. Gatorade might be less sugary than some, but it's still a risk if you drink it routinely without the activity level to match.
And Zero avoids the sugar, but you've got the artificial sweeteners debate, and again, the electrolytes are probably unnecessary.
Precisely. That health halo around sports drinks can be really misleading for the general public.
So what are the real health implications if someone who's not super active drinks Gatorade regularly?
For Thirst Quencher, it's primarily the excess sugar and calories, risk of weight gain, type 2 diabetes, heart disease over time. Plus, the acidity combined with sugar isn't great for your teeth enamel erosion. For Zero, you dodge the sugar calories. But the artificial sweeteners are still under research and debate regarding long-term effects. And for both versions, the extra electrolytes, especially sodium, aren't needed by most sedentary or lightly active people and could be a concern for those with blood pressure issues, for example. Bottom line, routine consumption, especially of the sugary version, by average folks is often unnecessary and potentially harmful. You really need to match the drink to your actual needs, not just the marketing.
Makes sense. Okay, final scenario. Social settings. People sometimes use Gatorade as an alcohol mixer. What's the logic there? Hangover prevention.
Yeah, that's usually the theory, the electrolyte rehydration idea. Alcohol is the diuretic, makes you pee more, leads to dehydration, which definitely contributes to hangovers.
So Gatorade helps with that.
It can help with the dehydration part, sure. It provides fluids and electrolytes. And this is a big but, it doesn't stop you from getting drunk, and it doesn't counteract the main cause of hangovers, which is the toxic byproduct of alcohol metabolism called acetaldehyde. It's not a magic cure or preventative shield.
And the sugar in regular Gatorade might not be great while your body's processing alcohol anyway.
Could be an added burden, yeah.
Are there other downsides to using it as a mixer?
Well, the sugar and thirst quencher is one adds empty calories and sugar to your drink. There are some anecdotal claims about sugary mixers making hangovers worse, but not much hard science there.
Okay.
More interestingly, some studies suggest artificially sweetened mixers, like Gatorade Zero, might actually lead to faster absorption of alcohol and higher peak blood alcohol levels compared to sugary mixers.
Really? Why is that?
The theory is that sugar slows down gastric emptying, how fast stuff leaves your stomach. So without sugar, the alcohol might get into your system quicker.
Huh.
Didn't know that. Also, just the taste factor. Gatorade is designed to be palatable, sweet, that can mask the alcohol taste, making it easier to drink more, faster, maybe without realizing how much alcohol you're consuming. So not exactly a healthy choice for mixing.
Okay, so how does Gatorade compare to using caffeinated energy drinks as mixers? That's a really common but risky combo.
Hugely important comparison. The big danger with energy drinks is the stimulants caffeine, guarana, taurine. They counteract alcohol sedative effects.
The wide-awake drunk phenomenon.
Exactly. You feel less drunk than you are, which is incredibly dangerous. Increases risk of binge drinking, poor decisions, accidents, risky behaviors.
And regular Gatorade, or even Zero, doesn't have those stimulants, assuming we're not talking fast twitch.
Correct. The non-caffeinated Gatorade versions lack those stimulants, so they don't carry that same risk of masking how intoxicated you actually are. Fast twitch is the exception with its high caffeine, but it's not marketed or typically used as a mixer.
What about other physiological risks?
Energy drinks plus alcohol can really strain your heart,
Yeah.
rapid heartbeat, palpitations, higher blood pressure, worsens dehydration too. Neurologically can cause agitation, anxiety. Gatorade's risks are more about the sugar load, thirst quencher, or maybe that faster absorption Zero. It doesn't have those direct stimulant effects.
And behaviorally, the risks seem much higher with energy drinks.
Definitely. Studies link alcohol energy drink combos to increased risky sexual behavior, driving drunk, needing medical treatment. Gatorade as a mixer is unlikely to change your behavior beyond what the alcohol itself does, because it's not messing with your perception of impairment in the same way.
So the bottom line comparing the two.
Non-caffeinated Gatorade is significantly less dangerous than caffeinated energy drinks as an alcohol mixer, full stop, because it lacks those stimulants and the masking effect.
But still not necessarily good.
Right. It's less dangerous, but that doesn't make it ideal or healthy.
So what's the best advice here if people are going to use mixers?
First and foremost, responsible drinking is key. If you use mixers, lower sugar, non-caffeinated options are better, honestly. Plain water or sparkling water are probably the best choices. They dilute the alcohol without adding extra risks.
No mixer stops intoxication.
Exactly. And hydration helps with hangovers, but it doesn't sober you up or prevent bad decisions. The goal with a mixer should be to minimize added risk. Energy drinks add significant risk. High sugar mixers add calories and metabolic load. Artificially sweetened ones might speed up absorption and have their own questions. Water or seltzer just dilute without those extra issues.
Okay. Wow. We have covered a lot of ground. Let's try and synthesize this. Where does Gatorade actually fit in today's beverage landscape?
Yeah, let's pull it together. So we saw it started as a very specific fix for athletes in extreme conditions. It evolved, got commercialized, expanded hugely. Thirst quencher and the specialized lines like Endurance or Gatorlyte. Still potentially very useful for intense, prolonged activity. But for most people, most of the time, especially with light activity,
Water is better.
water is king for hydration, for morning alertness. Timed coffee beats sugary Gatorade as an alcohol mixer. Non-caffeinated Gatorade is way safer than energy drinks, but water or seltzer are safer still.
So can we give some tailored recommendations, like for different types of people?
Sure, let's try. Elite endurance athletes. Thirst quencher, endurance, Gatorlyte during after might be appropriate. Fast twitch pre-workout, maybe, with caution.
Okay. Recreational folks,
Yeah.
gym goers, Weekend warriors.
Water is usually fine. If you're sweating a lot for over an hour and worried about electrolytes but want to avoid sugar, maybe an occasional Zero or Fit, but generally probably not needed.
And the general public. Most people.
Water for daily hydration, period. Discourage a regular thirst quencher because of the sugar. Zero is better than thirst quencher if you must, but the electrolytes are often unnecessary, and consider the artificial sweeteners. Limit sugary drinks overall.
Morning wake-up call.
Timed coffee.
Alcohol mixers.
Water seltzer first. If not, non-caffeinated Gatorade is a less risky option than energy drinks, but understand the potential downsides.
So, the big takeaway for you listening.
Gatorade was a game changer in sports science. It has a legitimate purpose for specific high-intensity situations, but its marketing has pushed it far beyond that niche. There's often a big gap between why people think they need it and whether they actually do.
Right. The brand diversified to follow trends, but you need to be discerning.
Absolutely. Prioritize water for everyday hydration unless you have those specific high-exertion needs. Understand the risks of excess sugar. Don't fall for the performance label if you're not performing at that level. The best drink depends entirely on you, your activity, your goals. Make informed choices.
Couldn't agree more. Think about your own activity level, what your body actually needs. Don't just grab it because it's there or because of the ads.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. In this sea of functional beverages, hydration drinks, energy drinks, wellness drinks, how do you personally cut through the marketing noise and figure out what genuinely supports your health and performance versus what's just hype? Something to mull over next time you're thirsty.